Today on Locked On Red Wings, Dylan Larkin scores the difference maker over Canada, and we continue our mid-season evaluations with Larkin, Berggren, Fischer, Holl, and Husso.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's a host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a sports writer for C&G newspapers, while I am a color commentator for Oakland University, ACHA, D1 Men's Hockey. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And Scotty, we had a exciting doubleheader of Four Nations face-off hockey on Saturday. Obviously, one of those games is a little bit more exciting than the other one. Not to take anything away from Sweden and Finland, but dude, America and Canada was on the next level.
It was one of the coolest hockey games I've ever watched. That was absolutely awesome. It's fantastic for the sport. It makes the conversation we had going into this absolutely ridiculous.
We were wrong.
Conversation we had at the whatever that was end of last week. We were like, is this going to be a success or worth everyone's while or whatever? I saw somebody tweeted I don't want to hear the words NHL All-Star Game ever again, and it's like, right. Yeah, it's kind of. I think that's kind of where everybody's at, man. And we got the Olympics in 2026 as well, which will certainly make be an awesome thing around this time of year. I cannot give enough credit to the NHL, which is something we don't say very often, but they absolutely hit a home run with this one, and that game was just peak hockey. Like genuinely, you had everything. You had literally everything. You had fights. You had special teams on both ends. You had high danger, high scoring opportunities. You had really fast skating. You had physical hockey. You had a lot of hits. You had great goaltending, great defense, great offense.
From one team.
Fair. You had just absolutely everything you could ask for in a hockey game. It was legitimately one of the coolest hockey games I've ever watched.
Yeah, I think we can say with confidence that we were wrong about the Four Nations face-off. I mean, I was already sold on the Four Nations face-off after the very first game, Sweden and Canada, when we saw how seriously it was taken. And then this, as you just put, may have been the best hockey game I have ever seen in terms of intensity, physicality, speed. This matched, if not exceeded, a Stanley Cup Finals game. We haven't seen NHL players in the Olympics since 2014, the Sochi Olympics, when TJ Oshie had 4 shootout goals against Russia. So I've forgotten how intense these international tournaments can be at the highest level. And I mean, we had 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of the game, Scotty. If that does not set the tone for the entirety of the game, I mean, I was flipping out at home. I was screaming, "Oh my God." And Allison was like, "What's happening?" Because she's in the other room and she doesn't know. And I'm just like, dude, this is insane. I didn't think I would, because normally these tournaments are run by the IIHF. So fighting is barred. So to watch an international competition, 3 Brady Tkachuk, Matthew Tkachuk, and JT Miller, who punched himself in the face, all dropped the gloves in their fights 9 seconds into the game, just really set the tone for the physicality that they brought, and that was what the USA had to do to win the game. Yeah. I was talking about this. I might not have said it on air, but I was talking about it with some coworkers the other day. I'm like, if USA wants to win this hockey game and they have a legitimate shot, it's going to be by bringing the physicality. And they really set the tone with the physicality early. You saw McAvoy level McDavid. You saw, Tkachuk level Doughty behind the net. The boards just rattled. Because Canada's such a high-end skill team, not that USA doesn't have skill, right? But just McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, all those guys.
It's speed and skill all over the place, man.
Yeah, you're going to have to bully them. Yep. And they did. And I thought it was a really great game. I thought both teams kind of flashed what they were really good at, but USA's defensive core just really shut down the high-end scoring. They kept a lot of the opportunities from the high danger areas, the low slot. They kept it to, above the top of the circle and along the perimeter, and just a great job. And then Connor Hellebuck was phenomenal. I mean, that's why he's one of the best goalies in the league, from Michigan, by the way.
Unbelievable, dude. Yeah, absolutely sweet. One of my favorite tweets from after the game was the Winnipeg Jets official account tweeted, "So this is what it's like going up against Helly." And it was like, well, gonna taste your own medicine there a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, he was awesome. He deserved to be first star. It was absolutely phenomenal performance by him. What my favorite take from the game was everybody online saying that Canada has had this uh the I don't know. I mean, you can go back generations at this point. Like everybody grew up, the older than me generation grew up watching Gretzky, and then you had like my generation. They grew up all watching Crosby, and now you have this generation that's going to grow up and going to be idolizing Connor, and they've just had this like hierarchy on top end, like arguably best player, if not inarguably best player in the world for so long. And so no Canadian kids grew up wanting to be goalies, and now they just don't have any. That's like my favorite take ever. And I don't even like how true is that? Like it's probably a little dramatic, but like it's hilarious to me that they have. I mean, again, we don't have to go through the lineup a fifth time in the last 3 or 4 episodes, but it's one of the most talented and skilled rosters ever put together in the history of the sport, and they are struggling to find like a legitimate netminder. And then all the Red Wings fans are like, Kosa's waiting, like don't worry, Canada, you got somebody coming. It's just the entire event, it has just been a massive success, and this game was the pinnacle. This game was, and we all knew it was going to be, but this game was the peak of what this tournament and what this kind of round robin all-star week thing has to offer. And it couldn't have been better for hockey. It couldn't have been better from a viewer's experience. I didn't sit down until like 20 minutes into the game. I feel like it probably took me until 10 or 15 minutes into the first period to actually sit down and start watching the game again after the first Kachuk fight on puck drop. It just, everything about it was absolutely awesome, man. I was yelling and amped and jumping around and screaming at my TV all game. It was incredible to have that much passion behind an exhibition game.
Well, what's funny too is like it's not that they didn't have better goalies to pick. Like Logan Thompson this season is one of the best goaltenders in the league.
Yeah, 3 of the top 5 goalies in save percentage are Canadian, and none of them are playing.
Right. And like apparently there's some like political thing with Logan Thompson, internal politics, not like politics.
Yeah.
Regarding Logan Thompson, that they didn't want him on the team, but he has the second best goal saved above expected in the league, just behind Connor Hellebuyck this year. Mackenzie Blackwood is up there as well. He got the 10th best goals above expected. And then even here in Detroit, like Cam Talbot, I get like he's like 9 times out of 10, he'll give you a good game, but then he'll give you an absolute stinker. He's 20th in the league in goals saved above expected at 37. Where the hell is Jordan Binnington on this list? Like, legitimately, he's 46th in goals saved above expected. 46th. They had tons of other goaltenders they could have picked that were better, even if you don't want to go with Logan Thompson because of some internal turmoil with the coaching staff that is rumored to be going around, and they just chose not to. And they shot themselves in the foot. But anyway, Scotty, we got to talk about Dylan Larkin, too, in this game because he got promoted to center. We were just complaining about it, and we were like, you know what, we're going to have to grit our teeth and bear it. There's not enough time to adjust. Well, Mike Sullivan, after saying that, said, psych, we're going to adjust. He put Dylan Larkin at 3C with JT Miller and Boldy on his wing, and that line was very good all night long. And Dylan Larkin scores the eventual game winner on a turnover from Sidney Crosby, and, of course, got the assist on the
I got an apple on the empty netter,
Empty netter as well. So absolutely great game by Dylan Larkin. I think through 2 periods, he had like an expected goals for percentage of like 91%.
Yeah, well,
and he was great.
It was awesome. And not only obviously does he get the biggest goal in the tournament so far, but he also, which is just so cool. Like a Red Wing did that, like that's so sick. But I think, he was also out there a ton. Like they really upped his playing time, and I think a lot of that was due to actually the defense he provides rather than the offensive output they were anticipating from him. This is a guy that was out there at the end of the game when it was 6-on-5, it was Larkin, right? Like obviously
he's on a penalty kill.
Was playing a ton of PK minutes. Like he really was utilized a lot more, and I think that has more to do with the defense he was offering even than, what they thought he could provide offensively, which again was the biggest goal in the entire round robin up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, he went from playing 11 minutes in the first game to over 16 minutes in the second game. So they clearly realized, like, hey, we should have this guy play center. He's a good two-way center. And then he, of course, played well in that role, so they kept putting him back out there. And, I mean, that goal, that was an absolute snipe. And what I love about that, too, is this tournament, there have been so many times when players have been on 2-on-1s and they've made the selfless decision, which in one degree you'll love to see because it's nice to see players not be selfish, but you see those passes get broken up because they try to make the pass on a 2-on-1 and it gets deflected. Larkin knew who his opponent was in net, and he's like,
he passed it earlier, too. I mean, he had a break and did make the pass earlier, and it led to nothing. So, I mean, he talked about that with, I think it was Emily Kaplan in between periods or after the game maybe, and, talked about it. He's like, yeah, like we've been passing that a lot, and I decided I was going to shoot that one, and he's like, I just picked my spot and let it rip, and that's what ended up happening. So, yeah, if you're looking for one player that was the biggest difference between impact in game one for USA and game two, it is objectively your captain. Like it is objectively Dylan Larkin. He went from a fourth line winger that was getting rotated out sometimes and got, what did you say, 9 minutes, 10 minutes of
11,
ice time?
I think.
Yeah, he was second fewest minutes on the team and in game one, and then in this game was used in a ton of defensive zone, a ton of PK situations, and scored the biggest goal for the team so far. Like just absolutely awesome to see.
Yeah, I was super pumped to watch that game from a Red Wings fan perspective. Also, real quick, just an anecdote. The overtime loss Sweden had against Finland, Raymond did pick up another secondary assist, so he's at 3 assists on the tournament, tied for second most points in the tournament. There's a bunch of players at 3, so it's not like he's up there alone, but still nice to see him continue to contribute, and their season might be on the line. The tournament might be on the line against USA if Canada can't close it out against Finland. So we'll see the importance of that game, if there is any, on Monday. Anyways, we are going to head to a quick break. When we return, we'll start up midseason evaluations part 3. Stay tuned to Locked On Red Wings. When the game tips off, the NBA action is getting started, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. You're going to love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether it's backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I've missed my chance. Plus, the app is so easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports partner of the NBA. That one was for you, Scotty.
You're the worst person I know.
Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Speaking of the NBA, real quick, did you see the skills competition where Wemby and CP just started hawking balls up to try and beat it? They got disqualified. I'm glad that was the NBA's answer to the Four Nations face-off.
Yeah, dude. I'm not sure there's been a more lopsided head-to-head in terms of what two different sports are offering on the same day than that. That was absolutely not. The dunk contest is dead outside of one dude.
All-Star games
for years. The 3-point competition's cool, but they didn't even have all the best shooters in it this year. The skills competition was clearly a joke. And, then you had hockey, which had people literally trying to kill each other for their country in an exhibition game. So, yeah, I would say that hockey now has the upper hand in all-star festivities if they keep this.
All-star games across the board on every sport are just dead.
Yeah, baseball's the only remotely competent one.
And that's because they still have, there's still a reason to try in that game.
Well, not anymore. But
they got rid of that?
Yeah, a few years ago. But it's the only sport where you can exude full effort and not really risk injury. I think
That's fair.
is the biggest one, and it's also there's a lot of history around it. We don't have to. We can get on to hockey stuff, but yeah, huge win for the NHL. Huge win for the NHL. This has been.
Not often you can say that with this league.
Correct.
Scotty, player evaluation time. Let me share my screen. Let's lead it off with the captain, Dylan Larkin, since we were talking about how important he is to this team. Dylan Larkin this season, Scotty has, let me double check exactly. He has 23 goals, 27 assists, 50 points in 55 games. He plays in all situations, power play, penalty kill with this team. He's the number one center. He's the captain. Dylan Larkin is Dylan Larkin.
Yeah. I mean, this one's another one where it's like tough to really pinpoint exactly where to put him because it almost feels like insulting to put him just in meeting expectations. But that's because his expectations are higher than going into the season. They were higher than everyone else on the team pretty comfortably. Like it's not like there was a lot of guys that we were anticipating to be around a point a game production wise. And the reason that Raymond is in the very top is because he has far exceeded our expectations and been that incredible point producer. With Larkin, it's tougher just because this is what we expect out of him. We expect him to be a point a game ish production and can be used in every single situation on the ice, and that's what he's been this year.
Yeah, and I think it's not an insult to put him in meeting expectations because I had already kind of told myself he is doing exactly what we expected out of him, and he's been doing it for 3 or 4 seasons now. Like last year, I think we put him in exceeding because he was scoring at a higher clip than we had usually seen. He set a new career high in goals last year, in less than 82 games played. But throughout his entire career, he has been about a point per game player. He's either been just below or just above it, and yet again this year he's just below it. And he might finish just above it if he gets on a hot stretch. He went through a massive cold stretch that was broken once McClellan came in. Remember, Raymond gifted him the empty net goal. That started off his hot streak. I mean, Larkin being in meeting expectations means that your number one center, the guy that you lean on to lead this team, is doing his job. It's not an insult for him to be in meeting expectations. It means he's doing his job as the captain who makes $8 million a year.
For sure.
He is your captain.
For sure. I think maybe sometimes people, and we're guilty of this too, look at this tier maker and don't read the words that are in the boxes and just look at it and they go oh shoot, Larkin's in the middle next to Alex Lyon and Michael Rasmussen. That's ridiculous. But it's again, if it's based on the expectations going into the year, I think he's been exactly that, which is arguably the best player on the team, and that's what we expect out of him.
Yeah, because I just never really liked this player gets an A grade and B grade. I mean, I guess it's still, no matter what, it's still subjective, right? It's all still subjective, but this was an attempt to try and mix things up a little bit, how we evaluate these players. And next up is Jonatan Berggren, Scotty. The Swedish forward is now on the team full-time. He has 17 points in 53 games and 9 goals, 8 assists. He's getting some time on the second power play unit where he scored several goals this year, playing bottom 6 minutes. When it comes to Jonatan Berggren, man, how have you felt his season has gone based on preseason expectations of him?
Yeah, this is a tough one because for 2 reasons. One, my expectations were relatively low of him going into the year, so we weren't asking the world out of him, but with the amount of goals that walked out of this locker room over the summer, we really were kind of relying on him to be not set the world on fire, but be a solid bottom 6 goal scoring option. And the other reason why this is kind of difficult is because he's been better lately. He went through a pretty massive cold stretch where he was doing next to nothing for a while there at the end of the 2024 calendar year. And lately he's been better. So it's kind of tricky. You could almost split this first half, quote unquote, of the season in half again, and you could probably get 2 different grades out of him. I don't know, man. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I was thinking meeting expectations, but a lot of that, again, is recency bias. You made up a good point that, like, for a long part under Lalonde, he was struggling, and as many players were, and some players exploded, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm really excited to have our conversation about Patrick Kane, because he was like dead in the water with the team until they brought McClellan in, and then he became a point per game player again. So, but when it comes to Jonatan Berggren, our expectations of him were to be a bottom 6 scoring winger who's going to play on the power play. He's been a bottom 6 winger who's been playing on the power play. His scoring has improved since the McClellan thing. I don't know. I find it hard to be too hard on him because of the issues this team has had. I don't think Berggren's a big one.
Yeah. I'm okay with meeting. I was debating between meeting and below, but I think
Right.
we'll take the recency bias in as something that is helping him, and I'm okay with meeting.
Right, because in his rookie season, he played 67 games and had 28 points. He's only pacing for 26 points in 82 games, so a lower points per game clip in his first full season, his second real season in the NHL. So I don't know. It's tough to say with Berggren. He'll be one who might move at the end of the season, depending on how the last half of the year goes. But we'll be generous. We'll put him in meeting for now. Scotty, next up is Justin Holl. This is a guy who we put in failing expectations last year. He was a guy you signed to a 3-year, $3 million deal to play. You were hoping, at the time of his signing, top 4 minutes, right? This was before you traded for Petrie. He was going to be your second pair right D. Then you traded for Jeff Petrie, and then Justin Holl fell out of the lineup altogether under Lalonde. And this season, he has been more often than not an everyday player. Wings have played 53 games. He's played in 47 of them. He has been okay in the deployments that he's been given, but the big caveat to that is that he's been given the softest deployments out of any defenseman in the NHL. He and Gustafsson both. So our expectations for him going into this year are really, really low. And I find it hard to. He's playing every day. I think that was our expectation of him, but he's still not playing well.
Yeah, man, this is a tricky one for all the reasons you just laid out. I think there's an argument he's exceeding expectations.
Oh, stop.
No, but that's because of how low they were. You have to remember, this guy was healthy almost all year last year, and going into this season, the Red Wings carried 8 defensemen on opening night, and we didn't expect him to play.
He was in Grand Rapids.
A regular in the lineup is something that I don't think I saw coming. Now, I'm not going to argue to put him in exceeding expectations because, as you mentioned, he still hasn't played very well. But in terms of role, I mean, he's played far more than I expected him to this year. And, even as not awesome as that production has been.
Yeah, it's so tough because knowing the context of how he's used, it's I don't even want to put him in meeting expectations because I don't even think he's been particularly good on the third pair. Right. They just put in such soft spots, but because we're trying to base this on our expectations of the player. He was in Grand Rapids to start the year, Scotty. They waived him.
Right.
And now he's an everyday player in the lineup.
Purely based off of what was expected of him going into opening night. It's hard for me to put him in below, but he hasn't really impressed. He's kind of just been a body to play out there. So yeah, right. I'm fine with meeting.
We were expecting him to be in another NHL city. we thought he was going to be dealt.
Him to not be on this roster. So the fact that he gets playing time every night is.
Yeah, more out of a necessity, I guess.
Anyway, I think a lot of it's just he's a body there, especially with Petrie out.
All right. Christian Fischer. Oh, we need to go to a break. Oh man, we're way over. All right. Let's go to a quick break, and we'll come back with segment 3, and we'll finish off with the last 2 players on today's episode. Stay tuned to segment 3 of Lockdown Red Wings. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy as one of America's leading insurance brokers. With nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers, they offer one-size-fits-all policies. Their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in a good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million. No medical exam required, and it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL. Go to SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/LockedOnNHL. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. All right, Scotty, we have just 2 more players on today's episode to evaluate. And the first one of the 2 is going to be Christian Fischer, the dog. You love yourself some Christian Fischer.
I do.
This season, he's got 7 points in 41 games played. Lately, he's kind of been finding himself as a healthy scratch as the team got hot. Christian Fischer averaging 11 minutes of ice time, same as last year, of course, because he's a fourth liner. What are you saying about Christian Fischer? What are you thinking?
Yeah, as much as I absolutely adore him, I think it's probably fair to put him in meeting or even below. I mean, he was going into the year, and based on what we saw last year, like we fully expected him and knew that he was just going to be a bottom 6 defensive zone deployment, low point producing guy that can go on the penalty kill when he plays. But as you mentioned, he's been healthied quite a bit lately and hasn't even really been out there a ton. And when he is out there, he's producing even fewer points than than maybe we saw last year. And I feel like, like the role was just a little bit bigger last year. Now, part of that is just the quote unquote shutdown line from last season was the third line. And he was a part of that for a large majority of it. And now under new coaching, that doesn't really exist anymore. So I think that that's probably part of it. But when he does play, he's still the defensive zone deployment penalty kill guy. So like he knows his role. If we do put him in below, it's not like substantially below. It's not like he's having this catastrophic failure of a season. He's a depth forward at the end of the day, but I think it's probably fair to say he hasn't produced as much as we expected him to, even though we didn't expect a ton of production out of him as is.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I'm comfortable with putting him in below expectations just solely from the fact that last year he played 79 games. He was an everyday player. Yeah. This season he's played in, and the season's not over yet, but he's been a healthy scratch lately. And when he's in the lineup, he's not been very impactful either. He's just only played 41 games this season of the 53, and with McClellan, he hasn't been finding himself slotting in the lineup. So, and when he is in the lineup, he's less productive. So, yeah,
he's a guy that clearly Lalonde loved, and McClellan, I think, is not necessarily that he like hates him or anything, but I think he's trying to figure out how to utilize him best still. Lately with a lot of winning, that hasn't been in the lineup.
Absolutely. All right. The last one of the day is Ville Husso, and I think we can both pretty comfortably just pop him right in failing expectations.
Yeah. I mean, going into this season, he was a guy that we had. His role was very highly talked about, and it was like, okay, you got 3 goalies right now. How are you going to utilize all of them? How are you going to utilize Ville Husso? He kind of had a couple of decent performances in the preseason, and you were like, oh, like maybe there's a little bit of something there. He's still the highest paid goaltender on the team. And he just hasn't played. And not only has he not played, I don't even think people like really talk about him anymore in terms of like, oh, like, let's see what fill in the blank has to offer in that, right? Like, let's see what so-and-so can do. Like Ville Husso's not filling in that blank anymore. Like it's just like, okay, like that. this is Lyon and Talbot, assuming they're both healthy for the foreseeable future. And he's in Grand Rapids. As you mentioned the other day, he's not even really doing that well at this point in Grand Rapids. Was really good when he first got sent down there and has kind of, tailed off a little bit. I think, this is a guy that we were talking about going into opening night. Like, he needs to prove to the organization that he deserves to be here after this year. And I think it's pretty safe to say that he has done the opposite of that. I can't really see a reality in which he sticks around after this season.
No, he's gone. And I think that Yzerman was probably, and this is just my speculation, but I think Yzerman was probably looking for a way to offload that contract. But then he started the season with Detroit. Remember, he was the home opener starter, and he got lit up against the Penguins. They looked awful.
Crazy. That's a crazy stat, eh?
He had a 714 save percentage against the Penguins in that game. It was brutal. He had a stretch of like 3 games. He's only played 9 games total with the Red Wings. He had a stretch of like 3 where I was like, okay, maybe he's figuring it out. He was very good. And then he let in 3 on 7 shots against the Buffalo Sabres. I'm sorry, it was 3 on 7 shots against the Buffalo Sabres. That was the game where Sebastian Cossa came in and made the relief and got the win in the shootout. So it's just like our expectation for him was so low. It was literally just stay healthy, and he hasn't even accomplished that. He can't stick at the NHL level. He's been hot and cold at Grand Rapids. I think his overall season is save percentage is pretty good still. I think it's 914 down there in Grand Rapids, but he's been going through stretches. He's been going through healthy.
I thought it was, yeah.
Yeah, he's been going through healthy and injured stretches down there too. It's just, our expectation was so low, and he still can't even. And that's like, we debated not even talking about Ville Husso on this because he's only played 9 games, but the reason we just opted to do it was because, we had preseason expectations of him. Like, we did an episode about him.
Right. And as you mentioned, this isn't like, this guy, barely made the team and we're just talking about him for no reason. Like, again, he was the starting goalie for the home opener, man. Like that's you know what I mean? Like it's absolutely worth talking about. This is a guy that a lot more was expected out of him. You could say that really over the course of his whole contract, but certainly this year too.
100%. Scotty, that about does it. We have a handful of players left. Normally we get this done in like 3, but with the 4 nations going on.
Yeah, we've been cutting out. Usually we don't waste a segment and a half talking about
something else.
Non-Red Wings hockey either. So
we got 9 players left, so we'll try and knock that out fast, so we don't do, because we do have plans for this week too. But anyways, we'll end it there. You got any final thoughts, Scotty?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow.
Play Freebird.
Play Freebird, baby. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.